Oh my god. Oh my god, people. I'll try not to break down this time. I've already recorded this video. I've let the news sink in. I just can't believe it. I'm in shock again. I'm in shock. It's like it never ends. I'll tell you the story from the beginning, but if you've been on my channel for a few years, you heard the story. I just can't believe that I can't believe that I just read. The reason why I just found this out is because I had some really good revelations, and I was just thinking about how I have to clean up some loose ends. And I remembered this headline I had read a few months ago, maybe close to a year ago, and I read the headline, and I just said, "Oh my God, I don't want to read. I don't want to read the article. It can't be good, and God forbid the details hit close to home. I wasn't able to handle it at the time. My cousin had just crashed and died in his motorcycle accident, and I wasn't feeling that ready for another trauma. I didn't expect this. I really didn't expect this. I thought I'm in shock. I can't believe it. This is horrible. I'll start from the beginning. Way at the beginning, 3 years ago, I guess, when I was homeless for the first time after running away from my narcissistic parents, and because they were stalking me, big time, using the police, using the courts, using flying monkeys. I left all my belongings behind, and I went to the park to be homeless, so they wouldn't be able to follow me from my apartment to the next apartment. And also because I had a nervous breakdown, whatever. I think it's called fugue, when you just want to run away from your life and you just run. Anyways, by the time I got an apartment and I was eating at the homeless shelters for my food, I found myself across a guy one day, and he seemed a little bit scary to me. He reminded me of a terrorist. And at the time I was really traumatized, so I was seeing psychopaths everywhere. So I was extremely weary to talk to him. But eventually I ended up speaking with him. And I was very surprised because he was really a nice guy and very soft spoken. Sometimes I'll tell you, when you're homeless and you see some guys from a distance, they look so disheveled and so beastly that you're shocked when they open their mouth and they're like, some peace loving Christian guy. You know what I mean? Like, all these weird things are always like, oh my God, my preconceived notion was completely wrong. So we start talking. I told you guys this story when I met him. Fuck. Oh my God. Oh God. He told me he just got out of prison. Do you remember the story? He told me he just got out of prison. So I was like, how long? How long? He said 23 years. I think I dropped my fork, because I've never heard of anyone getting out after 23 years. Usually in this country, if you get 23 years, it means you've killed someone, and if you are getting out, you're going to be 60 or 70. And he was a young man. Well, he was my age around. So I was like, holy shit, dude! I'm like, 23 years. I'm like, who did you kill? I leaned in. I said, who did you kill, man? Like, I thought I had a real psychopath on my hands. Still at that moment, I was like, oh, maybe I'll have something for my channel here, because I'm engaged with him. He seems to be opening up, and he must have killed someone. But he says, no, man, I did bank robberies. And he explained to me pretty much what my best friend did when he was around the same age, 17. He did his first bank robbery, and then he got addicted to the thrill. So it didn't become about the money, it just became about doing another bank robbery. And my friend was doing convenience stores, but one after another, it ends up being what they do. It ends up being what they do, which, as anyone with can tell if you just think about it for 2 minutes. Well, that is a great recipe for getting caught. If what you do is commit high risk crimes, how many times are you going to get away with it? He told me he got away with it about 15 times. He robbed 15 banks with his little crew. Back in the 70s, and no, back in the 80s or 90s. He said the last robbery, they were so just jacked up on the excitement. I mean, I prodded into the emotions he was going through to try to get into the whole situation. I just didn't want to just hear the story. I wanted to hear the emotions behind it. So I kept pushing him. Why did you do that? What were you thinking? So the last robbery, he describes that they're sitting around doing their thing, hanging out, and they're thinking about planning a robbery, but it's a hot night. I've mentioned this a few times. When it's hot night, I hear trouble outside, and myself, I get crazy. And so they just got crazy. It was 2 in the morning. They said, let's just go for it. Let's just do it now. So they run out of the apartment holding hammers. They just run to a bank, the closest bank, and they start smashing the windows. Without a plan, without a getaway car, without a watch out, without even looking if there were cops around. He said as soon as they smashed the windows and they were in, the cops were out there, guns drawn. They get arrested. What they weren't counting on was that the cops were going to be able to pin them back to all the other robberies. So that was their mistake, because I'm sure at the moment they would have thought, they were thinking, well, he described the moment they were just thinking, well, if we get caught, we get caught. But it just didn't cross their mind that they're not. If they get caught, they're not getting caught for the robbery. They're getting caught as bank robbers. 15 of them, thousands of dollars. Never hurt anybody, but they would flash a fake gun. So, anyways. So I say, congratulations, man. At least you're out. You're free. And here's where the story just turns tragic. I mean, he looked at me with the saddest eyes ever, and he said, don't congratulate me. I am not happy. He goes, I'm very depressed. I've never been this sad in my life. He goes, if I could do something to go back into prison with all my friends and everyone I knew, he goes, I would go tomorrow. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I was in shock. Just thinking about it now, it's shocking. I'm like, how come? And he explained his friends are not there. He doesn't understand the internet. He never had a cell phone. He doesn't want it. It just makes beeps, and the whole thing just drives him crazy. And the whole world is just different. He went in the 80s. It's now 2009. It was 2016 at the time when I saw him. It was overwhelming for him. Can you imagine? Can you guys imagine? I mean, life can be overwhelming enough if you've grown up within this world. So I understood what he was saying, but I I thought he was going to get over it, I told him, I said, well, you can always commit a crime. And he goes, I'm not going to do that. He goes, they're not going to throw me in the same... He goes, if they can throw me in the same cell, I would commit a crime, he says, but put me in another jail where I have to get new people. He goes, it's not... I don't want to hurt... He was a nice guy. He didn't want to hurt society. He wasn't a criminal mind. I would have exchanged numbers with him, but I didn't have his cell phone. I still don't have his cell phone. So what am I going to exchange? And I thought I'd see him again. I said, I'll talk to you again. I never saw him again. So now I flash forward to the end of last year. It wasn't the summer. And this article comes up in the local paper. And I see what it says in the top. Guys, I can't believe it, man. I can't believe it. I can't fucking believe it. His entire life was difficult. Sister testifies as coroner's inquiry wraps up. Her brother Mario hanged himself in a Montreal's men's center in 2016. The coroner's final report is expected in spring of 2019. They had a 3-day inquiry. He committed suicide, that guy. In the men's center where I met him. Or another one, I'm not sure. I don't think it was actually the same one. I can't believe it. He spends 23 years in prison. He gets out and commits suicide within 6 months. I'm just in shock. Black sheep, bad family, man. His sister was there 3 days. They put an inquiry. Everybody was so upset. Christ. He was described as a man who fell through the cracks in the system. He had nowhere else to go. Yeah, he should not have got 23 years. Obviously, he fell through the cracks. He must have had the worst representation. His sister is describing on the stand, Mario had a difficult childhood. I think his entire life was difficult. He was 44. He hanged himself 7 months after moving in. Just a few months after I spoke to him. This is how I knew it was him. I was pretty sure it was him because of the name Mario, but I didn't read this until just now. He had spent the previous 23 years in provincial and federal prisons. That's what I knew for sure. It's the same Mario. For sure it was the same guy, obviously. I knew when I read the headline. Okay, listen, long before he was in prison, his sister said they grew up without a father and with a drug-addicted mother. I'm sure that sounds very familiar to many of us. No father, a drug-addicted mother. Here she is crying on the stand. So now his sister ends up taking care of her brother, basically parentified, making his lunches and bringing him to school. And in return, the brother, the guy who committed suicide, he would protect her from an abusive stepfather who would beat them both. She said Mario cared about me than he did about himself. That was the problem. He forgot about himself. He was sent to live in youth centers from a young age, fell into with bad crowds, and he was incarcerated as soon as he turned 18 for crimes including theft, robbery, assault, and uttering death threats. Basically, he's hit somebody, he's threatened people, but theft and robbery. He told me what it was. When he was released from prison in 2015, Jesus Christ. I think I met him it was a few weeks after he was gone. He was out. His sister said he was left to fend for himself. She helped him get a bank card, a health insurance card, and a copy of his birth certificate. Things he never had in his life. He never had any of those. He was facing homelessness after being refused entry to 3 halfway houses. Oh, he found a room somewhere else. As soon as he was in that center, he would have fits of paranoia, hallucinations, and he would become violent. They say that this was not the right place for him. Yeah. I know that place. It's just full. He was a clean dude. He came out of prison. He was a nice guy. This is a place full of drug addicts, people who are in the throes of a lot of mental illness, and he didn't have mental illness when he was just broken. He hanged himself. There were filthy clothes in his closet, dirty dishes, buckets of fetid water everywhere. His medication was scattered. He had a hard time adjusting to life outside prison, they said. He'd even sleep in his closet instead of his bed. Jesus Christ. Oh my God. Well, another black sheep down, man.